New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is vowing to appeal the decision by a federal judge that ruled the NYPD stop and frisk practice is unconstitutional. While community activists praised the decision, the mayor said the judge is totally out of touch with the realities on the streets.
This is a very dangerous decision made by a judge that I think just does not understand how policing works and what is compliant with the U.S. Constitution as determined by the Supreme Court. We believe we have done exactly what the courts allow and the Constitution allow us to do, and we will continue to do everything we can to keep this city safe.
A whole generation of New Yorkers, particularly in Black and brown communities across the city, have grown up seeing the police not as protectors, not as partners in safety, but as an institution to be feared. That should never have happened. It should not be happening now.
Tom Ruskin is a highly decorated former New York City police detective and now president of the CMP Protective and Investigative Group. I asked him about the comment you just heard, that a whole generation view police as an institution to be feared.
I would hope not. I would hope that the communities and the police always can find common ground, because both entities are looking for the same thing. They're looking to fight crime and arrest those people who are committing crime, especially in areas of high crime in our city.
You know, the judge found that for much of the last decade, and this is what what the judge said, patrol officers had stopped innocent people without any objective reason to suspect them of wrongdoing. Did the judge get this wrong in your estimation?
Well, I've never seen that happen. In all my years of law enforcement and enforcing the laws in New York City, I never saw an illegal stop and frisk ever happen in my presence, and never have witnessed that. So I find it hard to believe. I believe that every officer goes out there every day understanding what the laws are, the federal laws, the state laws, and what the patrol guide and the regulations of the New York City Police Department are, and enforces those laws to the best of their ability. And any other way that they would do it would be a violation of law. You know,
you and I, we've had many conversations about this over the last several months, particularly since this trial started. And, you know, I think it's wonderful that you have seen a good result with stop and frisk, but the numbers don't bear that out. And over 90% of those who were stopped did not result in a conviction. Of course, Black and brown communities and Black and brown people were overrepresented in these stops. Less than 1% resulted in the conviction of a crime. Isn't there a better way to do this?
I think that the police department has to look at a way of better monitoring it and better carrying this out, and then improve the relationships with people like the woman you alluded to in your first question. I think that it's important that the police work with the communities. So I think that, you know, there's a way of better educating officers on what they should do and how they should do it and how they should articulate it. But just because you don't make an arrest, and we've talked about this on camera before, just because you don't make an arrest doesn't mean you haven't stopped a crime. You can see someone who's acting suspicious in front of a building who may be looking to mug someone or follow someone into their building and mug them or hurt them or do something more dastardly than even that. And by going up and questioning that person and asking them what they're doing in that area is not infringement on their rights. It's what you're paid to do as a police officer. And if they then walk away because they realize the cops are watching them, you may have avoided a crime.
I think some of the objection to many of the opponents of stop and frisk, though, would say that it's the definition of what those, quote, furtive movements are, that, you know, sometimes the bulge in the pocket is a wallet, which should be there. You know, sometimes the change in direction is just someone going a different way, and that does tend to make a community feel victimized. So let me just ask you this very quickly on our last few segments. The judge did not order the dismantle of stop and frisk, but ordered remedies, an oversight program, body cameras, community meetings. Do those seem reasonable to you?
I think it may be an overreach, and I think that there may be another compromise. I don't think that you have to put cameras on police officers to determine if police officers are doing the right thing and enforcing the laws properly. I think you can have supervision and enforce the learning and the training of those officers so that they don't even come close to violating anyone's civil rights.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. Tom Ruskin, as always, thank you so much.
Deb, thanks. Have a nice day.
You too. For more insight on what the judge's ruling means, our guests are former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Pamela Hayes and Sunita Patel, who is an attorney with the Center for Constitutional Rights. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I do appreciate it. You heard a little bit of our conversation with Tom Ruskin, a former NYPD officer, but we also, just before we spoke with him, played a bit of what Mayor Bloomberg said in his press conference. And one of the things that he said was that the judge does not understand the reality of policing, which seems rich in irony to me. Sunita, let me start with you. What's your reaction to that sentiment?
There's no conflict between constitutional policing and public safety. That is clear, and the judge recognizes that. She's saying she's not trying to end the program. Also, there is no empirical data linking stop and frisk to crime reduction. There is absolutely no statistical evidence of that. There are numerous studies showing actually quite the opposite. When the LAPD was under a consent decree that included a federal monitor and reforms to its stop and frisk program, crime went down.
Of course, New York City Police Department said that crime has gone down in the last 10 years, and they credit stop and frisk for that. Mayor Bloomberg, other officials have said, that if there is a curtailing of stop and frisk, the crime will go back up. Is that a realistic assessment?
I don't know if it is. I think a lot of factors contribute to crime going down. Stop and frisk might be one of them. I think it has to be applied equally to be constitutional, to have to be upheld by the 4th and the 15th, the 14th Amendment. And unless they're doing that, they're going to have a problem. I think crime will continue to go down. There are a number of factors that are involved, stop and frisk being one of them. I just think that the way it is attributed to the community now is unconstitutional.
Sunita, do you view the judge's ruling a bit of a mixed victory? I mean, she did say that many individual civil rights were violated, but she did not order a ban on stop and frisk, just some reform.
No, we actually, we've never called for an end to stop and frisk. It's a legitimate law enforcement tool that the Supreme Court has sanctioned. The problem here is that they've decided that they're just going to use it to criminalize entire communities. And, just in response to Mr. Ruskin's statement that this is an overreach, it's not. The NYPD has had 14 years to reform itself while under this series of litigation and has not. They have not made any legitimate attempts at reforms and have not come up with other proposals or compromises.
I wonder is it possible for the NYPD, the city, to fix the damage that's been done between Black and brown communities and law enforcement as a result of this initiative and other similar ones? What's your thought on that, Pamela?
I think that they can fix it. The first thing we have is that somebody has realized that it's not being applied appropriate. I think if the mayor and the police commissioner really understood Judge Schindler's decision, they would be able to change it. It's just not a matter of going into one community and trying to fight crime that specific way. You could go in other communities where there's crime. There's a lot of crime around Wall Street. You have a lot of these young guys that's smoking, doing drugs and stuff like that, and nobody's stopping and frisking them. So the real question becomes, well, if you want to do it like that, then you have to do it like that to everyone. I mean, you're going to have some of the same and similar results. When you look at the statistics, it just shows that, all this searching, humiliating people, having people to deal with this type of intrusion doesn't count for a large proportion.
That's right. And also the NYPD and the city should look at this as an opportunity. The judge is saying you have an opportunity to build back public confidence and trust in your law enforcement tool. Work with the community. She's ordered a stakeholder process where we get to sit at the table, have meetings, it's facilitated. They get to have a say in the reforms, but so do the people impacted by the policy. And it's an opportunity for them.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming. Sunita Patel, Pamela Hayes, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate it. We move on.